Greetings, everyone. It's Chris Boylan here, back again with another Pantheon behind-the-scenes breakdown. I was the CG supervisor for the series. My job was to take CG assets and integrate them in with the 2D animation as best that we could. Today, we are going to be taking a look at a shot that I'm particularly proud of. I think that it really embodies the philosophy that I like to approach production. I really came at this from the angle of understanding how the 2D animation pipeline works and making sure that our CG assets were presented and delivered in a way that matched what they were expecting, right? And you'll see here as we dive into the shot what I mean by that. So I think without further ado, let's hop in and take a look. So here we have the shot in its final comp form. This is a shot from episode 7, a missile launch that, again, we're going to be going over spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, please feel free to stop this video and watch the show. I greatly appreciate it because it is a great little show. So this is another climactic scene from episode 7 where Lori is about to get blown up. The server ship that she is currently residing on is targeted by Chanda, and he has taken over this destroyer and launched a missile at her freighter where the servers that she lives on are located. This shot posed a unique challenge, and you'll see as we walk through what I mean by that, but essentially this shot had to pan across a double tall, double wide background, right? So normally how this works in 2D, obviously, is that you get the background and you take the camera view and you slide the camera where you want the camera to view the background. In CG, typically, if you're doing a CG production, like a regular, 3D, fully 3D rendered production, you would just rotate the camera, right, to follow the object. And you'll see why in the demo that sort of technique works in 3D, but kind of breaks down when you get into 2D. So let's jump into that right now and have a look at what's going on. So here is the example of the shot before I got called a retake for it. Originally, this shot was handled outside of the main production by an external vendor. And what you can see here is that, the missile kind of shoots up. It does this like wobbly animation and then kind of just like flies out of the top of the screen. But more importantly, what I want to highlight for you here is that you can tell that the camera is actually rotating. It's not panning up the drawing like it should be, right? It's actually just rotating to follow the object. And this introduces a host of issues, as we'll see when I pull up the initial comp when the retake was actually called. So again, you can see here this, a couple of things that I called out a little bit too for myself. I'm a bit of a nerd in a lot of things, and back when I was a kid, I was like really into like military stuff, and I know that this is a cruise missile. This is a variant of a Tomahawk cruise missile, and I know from being a nerd as a kid that the wings fold out. It doesn't shoot up and deploy the wings already out, right? Because it comes from a tube. Right, so the wings actually swing out, and then once it orientates horizontally, that it uses to cruise right along the water or wherever it's being shot at, right. So that was something for me that I really wanted to kind of reintroduce, especially once this retake got called out. So there was a bit of extra rigging that had to go into making it so that this cruise missile was a little bit more accurate for my own OCD. I think that we made a point, especially across this first season, to be very accurate you know, in as much as we could, right? And to really push the bounds of what we were showing. And so I really wanted to reintroduce that into this shot as much as I could. And you'll see as the retake gets called what goes into that. So real quick, I wanted to also highlight this clip here. This is one of the first passes of composite on this shot. You can see that, you know, there's smoke now. The missile is flying up. You can see how the comp artists really did their best to try and make the missile fly in a way that didn't feel awkward. And so this is what we're talking about when we talk about panning the camera up versus shooting the shot as it would be in 2D, right? So what we have here is we have a shot where the missile itself is moving at a different speed and moving through the frame at a different rate than the actual camera, right? The final camera is this snap, pull out, zoom up, right? And the original shot that we got that we saw in the Maya clip that we just looked at is much more even. It's much more just like a follow, right, of the actual object. And so you can see how the movement, especially towards the top of the frame, starts to jitter and jerk around. And that's because the comp artist, in this instance, is doing their damnedest to really smooth out the fact that the object is in the center of the frame and is just jiggling around. And so they're really doing their best to like basically animate this by hand almost. And so you'll see how when I got this, I was able to kind of mitigate that problem and give comp something that was extremely useful for them. So this here was actually the first retake that I was asked to do, and you can see that I've done a drawing on top of the Maya footage because essentially, you know, the Tomahawk cruise missile, it shoots up out of its tube, right, and it kind of drifts a little backwards as it orientates horizontally. It's very interesting to just watch clips and footage of this, and I did, obviously for reference, watch footage over and over and over again and frame through like how is the missile actually moving. And so I use this as a way to sort of try and head off the retake that got called later. So this was actually delivered to our external vendor as a note to say this is the path that the missile should be taking. And I just basically did this by drawing over top in TV Paint to give them sort of like a quickie example of like this is the flight path that the missile should be taking here. And you'll see how I actually use this in the final as reference for my own animation when I came to actually grab this shot. All right. So here is the cruise missile rig. So essentially once this shot was called out for me to retake, I went ahead and asked to collect the cruise missile CG model from the external vendor. I took it into Blender, and you can see that there was a lot of like, a lot of times what happens is with with external vendors, sometimes it's hard to get everything that you need. Sometimes you're given a model that's subdivided. Sometimes you're just given the model, you're not given the textures, or the textures aren't high enough resolution, or they're old textures. It's just like, it's not on the top of their list to get you exactly what you need in short order, essentially, for whatever reason that is. So, basically when I got this model, it wasn't textured, it wasn't, complete. It didn't have really like a lot of the details that the concept art had in it. These like, little boxes here and stuff like that. So I just wanted to go in, create some edges, mark some edges, make it look pretty. And that's what I did. I went in, I added all these details. You can see that the rig is pretty straightforward. This is the main mover here. You can grab it, rotate it. There's a fire cone here. That's just a reference because we were going to be doing 2D hand-drawn effects for it. And this here, these are the controls for the fins, right? And all that is an animation constraint that I put onto the bones. So I just did a linear transition from A to B, boom, and now when it launches, they can be folded up. Same thing with the wings here, shunk, shunk. And, you can see that they penetrate the geometry, that's not actually a compartment there. We didn't need it to be anything that was visible. The shot where the wings deploy is so far away that you wouldn't be able to tell anyways. And there's a line art modifier on there that's showing us like, oh yeah, okay, there's a quote unquote compartment there, right? So, I mean, this is a very simple, basic rig, nice and easy. I think everything is parented. There's no skinning on this rig, and I have everything organized here into my collections. I did that so that when I imported the collections into the animation scene, it would be easily set up for composite in the end there. You have your lines, your geometry, you have your effects, which should just be the cone, yeah, see? The line art. The geometry lines themselves, I think, are just... Okay, okay, I see. Got it. So essentially I wanted objects that... Yeah, that's how I organized it. So the details, I didn't want them to have line art around them, but anything that I wanted line art had a geometry.lines collection, right? And then effects as well had its own collection. And the line art is pointing at the geometry lines. And then pretty much you just pop it in, fire and forget. So let's hop into the shot now, and I'll show you my working process and how it differed from the initial take here. All right, we have the composite file here, the animation, and you can see that the camera is set up in a way. So if I grab the camera just for fun here, and I'm gonna turn the where's the pass part out? I'm gonna turn that to 1. So you can see that the camera is actually set up to fit the entire background. And I went in and actually did an F-Spy camera match to get an angle and a field of view that felt correct for this shot, right? So I just basically picked a couple of parallel lines off of here, off of this ship, and I set up a camera that I think roughly equated to the angle, the field of view, the focal length, where it was, so that the missile looked like it was placed in the scene, right? So that it looked like it was fully integrated into the background. You can see this is a 35.4 millimeter lens, or no, it's 35.4 degrees. So if we do millimeters, so it's a 56 millimeter lens. So it's going to be a little flatter, which is perfect. Once we got this all set up, everything started to really come together because I could just shoot the missile straight up out of the ground. The ground plane was basically where it was supposed to be. So yes, you can see here that the resolution X and Y is 3704 by 2708. It is not 1920 by 1080 times 2, so 4K. It is a little bit different here with the aspect ratio. This is not a 16:9 aspect ratio image, obviously. So the reason I did that was because that was the size of the background image. That is the size of the background image that got delivered to comp, right? So the nice thing about Blender that I've experienced is that you can set your render to be any aspect ratio you want, right? And the nice thing about that is when you have a scene in 2D that needs a pan and that pan goes up, right? If it's a double vertical pan, right? You literally can, it's like 2160, right? 1920 by 2160. You literally can set that 1920 by 2160, and then you have your background image, and you do whatever your CG is doing inside of that image, and then pan it in comp, and it works seamlessly. So if we have a look here, I'll just hit play. I think this plays at full speed. So you can see here, boom, that's it, right out of frame. And this is what essentially these missiles do. They shoot up. You can see here, if we paused it, you can see here the line art is all generated. The wings are tucked. The tail fins are all folded, boom, here, and then out to its target, right? This, I mean, just the fact that we were able to iterate so quickly on this, I mean, the turnaround was only a couple of days before I had a final approval. I'm pretty sure that I used motion paths as well to kind of smooth out my curve to make it look, really appealing and nice, and to just zip out of the frame here. And that was really fun as well, because the director himself, he wasn't shy about giving me notes. But this is where I think the animation director also started to kind of get in on the fun and add his input, which was really valuable. I mean, the director himself is an amazing animator as well, and the animation director for the series, they're both amazing animators that have been at Titmouse forever, and to have that sort of expertise, helping to guide me and to sort of see things that I wasn't seeing. It was just like every single time I'd get notes, and this would just become better and better. And that was how it was for the entire production. Was essentially just like I was looking forward to dailies because I was getting notes that were making the work just look so much more amazing. And so I really appreciate the ability to kind of collaborate with the team in that way and feel integrated into this team. So let's move on to the next step here. So we have this vertical missile launch, but we're not done yet, because where's the smoke? Where's the fire? Well, coming up, you'll see what happened. So I mentioned before that one of the things that I really enjoyed about this production was its collaborative effort, and really it's sort of the encouragement for everybody that was involved to stretch outside of their comfort zones, right? Really push the limits of what they were able to do. And so when I was doing this retake, I took it upon myself to attempt the effects animation for this shot as well. And I feel like, not only was it an amazing learning experience for me, because effects animation is hard, guys. Like, everybody knows this. But it was also extremely gratifying to, again, take a shot from concept to completion entirely, right? And to be allowed to really try to do 2D effects animation and add that by my own hand. And luckily, we had this amazingly talented effects animator named Hussein Untoro, who's, well known in the internet animation community. And he, I think he was doing like prototyping. He wasn't actually animating effects so much on the show. He was just doing like conceptualizing of the effects. And because I had access to him, I was able to say like, hey, Hussein, like, I'm trying to do this smoke effects. Do you have any tips for me? Is there anything that you think about when you're doing it? And he was generous enough to make me like a 5-minute video, just showing me his thought process and animating like a cloud, billowing. And that was really helpful for me in order to get this sort of motion. So I'm going to hit play on this in this TV Paint file, and we're going to just have a look at the rocket here. So this is the full effect here. You can see now. I wanted, this sort of, we can stop here and just go back to home, and we'll go through it. So essentially, from the reference that I saw, there's an external vent that's directing the rocket flame upwards, right? So that it's not shooting down into the ship when it's shooting up, right? There's actually an exhaust vent that's firing the rocket flames forward. So I have this on 2s, right? Boom, the cloud billows, the flame recedes because now the rocket's coming up, right? Out, the cloud cools, boom. We get a secondary cloud there, and then you can see this just boom, boom, boom. One of the things that was really helpful for me with this was that the director told me to think of to choose to choose a perspective on the design of the clouds, right? I think in the beginning it was a bit too much like a billowy kind of rounded shape, so there wasn't really a lot of like intentionality behind like the shape language of the clouds and stuff like that. And I found that in just picking a little bit more of a geometric approach to the especially the silhouette, it helped me to track the details a lot when I was animating this by hand, because this was really difficult. And you can see here that it billows as the rocket shoots out. So if we, right. So one of the things that you know, is kind of nice, and I hid in this animation, is that a lot of this animation is on 2s, 3s, and 4s. You wouldn't be able to tell because that rocket is on 1s, right? And so you're sitting here like, holy crap, like you're gonna rotoscope flames coming off of a rocket and then have to do, you know, this billowing smoke on 1s. Like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? You can see. Now we have stuttering, right? The smoke is on different frames, so that also gives it a bit of a texture to feel. It makes it feel more high fidelity. This is something that you see in like Mitsuo Iso's work all the time, where he'll just do like one thing will be held for like 13 frames, and it's just like an element of the body that's like moving around, right? And the forearm is like on 1s and 2s, and the body's on like 12 frame hold, and it just looks beautiful, and you can't really tell that one thing's not moving for so long. And that's sort of the technique that I applied to the actual exhaust. So you can see the exhaust coming out of the rocket is on 1s, right? And you can also see that where it connects to the smoke is also on 1s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So what I'm doing here is I essentially shot the rocket up and I did the smoke billowing on 2s, right? Until the rocket got to a certain distance away from the smoke, and then I started billowing the smoke on 4s. And I did that because I didn't want to be sitting here. I mean, this is a 44 frame shot. There's like several layers in it, and I didn't want to sit here and kind of like muddy up, you know, in betweening every single frame. It would have taken me way too long, and I was already sort of like out of my comfort zone, out of my element, because I was 2D animating effects. But I mean, I think the shot came out really great. And you can see here, boom, like that. So this was delivered to comp in layers so that they could do what they needed to do, and exactly the way that it would expect it to. Like, it wasn't, you know, I named it all like ABC layer and stuff like that, and then I gave them like a guide on how to comp it together, just like you would a 2D animation production. And then they received this as well as the CG element, and then the final shot, you know, came together beautifully, and we're gonna take a look at that right now. All right, and here you can see we have the final shot. It came together really, really nicely. I think that the added lens flare there on the end of the rocket, and just the extra blur on the smoke really, you know, brought this to a whole other level. And I mean, you can see now how the missile is not moving awkwardly through the shot, right? And you can track it with the camera, and it all just comes together, you know, really nicely. And it's sort of this, you know, being nerdy about 2D animation as a 3D artist, I think really came into play and helped out a lot, because I was able to say, oh no, we should be doing it like 2D. We should be fitting into their pipeline. We shouldn't be forcing our 3D way of doing things onto this 2D production. We're the ones that need to conform and fit in. And I think this is a really great example of how doing that just elevates the process and the piece itself. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. As always, I'm available. You know, like and subscribe, please. It helps out, definitely, getting these videos visible and spreading the word about Pantheon. And again, I'm always available to collaborate if anybody's looking for a CG supervisor for their 2D productions or non-photorealistic CG, full CG productions. So please feel free to reach out to me if you're interested. Until then, sayonara.